Hello, my name is Cameron O'Connell and welcome to my review on the 1DX Mark II. I'm a freelance photographer, videographer from the UK, and I've been using the 1DX Mark II as my main camera for a year now, and I've had the chance to get to know it pretty well. Size and weight. I love the size and weight of the 1DX. It fits nicely into a backpack and on a gimbal. I find the weight of the camera balances out some of my heavier lenses, giving me more stable results when filming handheld. For example, the 70-200 or my 14mm prime. Some people prefer smaller cameras. I think the 1DX is perfect for me. Ergonomics. The 1DX is a square slab of metal that just feels right in the hands. With a simple large button layout and built-in vertical grip, I could operate this camera with my eyes closed and gloves on. This means when I'm on set changing settings, I can do so without distracting myself from the creative goal. Weather sealing. I can do shoots in the pouring rain and not have to worry about my camera in the slightest. Battery life. The LP19 batteries, whilst they are quite expensive, they last all day. And that's just another factor I don't have to worry about when shooting. I've only ever owned 2 batteries, and that's always been enough no matter what shoot. Menus. The menu system on the 1DX is really easy to navigate, which is the same menu on nearly every single Canon camera. Having a simple menu system means I can change the most complex settings in no time, meaning I don't need to leave the subject waiting around to find that setting I know exists but can't find. You can even make the menus even more simple by setting up my custom menus and custom shooting modes. For example, I have my 12 most frequently used menu options spread over 2 pages. I also use 3 custom shooting modes for 3 different scenarios. For example, I use C1 for my photography, C2 for 1080p 120 frames, and C3 1080p 50 frames. Sensor size. The 1DX has a full frame sensor, and I like the full frame look. It's not essential for video, but I like having it as a photo-video hybrid, as it allows me to get a wide angle and a shallow depth of field. You also get better low-light results due to the larger sensor. Here's a comparison between the ATD and the 1DX. You'll notice that the 1DX is considerably cleaner at a similar exposure. Screen. The screen is another great feature of this camera. Yes, a small HD focus or something similar would be great, but the screen on the 1DX Mark II is large, bright and sharp enough for measuring focus and exposure. It's also a great touchscreen that can be used for selecting autofocus points, just like a smartphone, which leads me to my next point. Dual pixel autofocus. The dual pixel autofocus is probably the best feature of this entire camera. Having shot manual focus alone for the last 5+ years, I was very skeptical of this feature until I tried it. The ability to track subjects perfectly at f1.4 is an incredible feature, especially if you're on a gimbal or shooting a subject that moves frequently. An interview is a great example of this. While other camera systems now do offer autofocus in video, the Canon dual pixel autofocus is still rated one of the best. One of the reasons behind this is the way that the camera racks from one focus point to another, making the movement look natural and almost like a professional focus puller is at work. It's just so incredibly easy to use. It's also worth mentioning that the dual pixel autofocus works in all resolutions and frame rates. Color science. This brings me to mention the Canon color science that everyone seems to speak about on YouTube. Whilst I can most of the time tell a Canon camera from other camera systems, I think this term has been thrown around a little. But what I can tell you is that the Canon color science matches DJI and GoPro footage very nicely. I've noticed that the Canon color science is a slightly softer, warmer look that uses color to create contrast. This can be seen in editing when you adjust the vibrance and saturation. Now, I'm no colorist, but I've found that it pulls out certain colors of the image, therefore creating contrast, instead of pulling out all the colors in the entire image. It also seems to give quite natural, pleasing skin tones that don't particularly stand out. The Canon color science is also very consistent across the other Canon cameras, meaning you can match one Canon camera to another in no time. This is a great feature when it comes to editing footage from multiple cameras. Video resolutions and frame rates. This camera offers a few different resolutions, so let's start with the 4K. The 4K on this camera is shot in a motion JPEG codec and can be filmed in 24, 25, 30, 50 and 60p. It's a slightly different 4K than you're probably used to because it's Cinema DCI 4K, which is a 17:9 aspect ratio. The ability to shoot 4K slow motion is great, but not something I use on a daily basis. The 4K on this camera looks great, but can look quite soft compared to other cameras. The files hold loads of information, therefore giving you loads of room in grading. You can also take 8.8 megapixel JPEG stills from the 4K. Next up, the 1080 slow motion. The 100 and 120 frames is probably the best of any DSLR or mirrorless camera. It's easily the worst codec in this camera for image quality and sharpness, but the slow motion effect has a great smooth look that I find myself using most of the time. Shooting slow motion B-roll at these frame rates is like having a tripod or gimbal built in. It allows me to shoot stable, handheld footage 95% of the time. It's also worth mentioning that the 100 and 120 frames are off speed with no audio. This means that it plays back in camera in slow motion and no audio is recorded at all. Some people see this as a negative, but I love it, as it means I can view the footage in camera the way it will be displayed in editing, and I don't have to deal with it in post. The 1080p 24, 25, 30, 50 and 60 all look okay, but they could look better. They don't have the same wow factor effect as the high frame rates or the 4K, but they're there if you need them. Here's a look at each resolution and frame rate. When it comes to editing and dealing with the file sizes from this camera, the bitrate becomes quite important. When compared to most other cameras, the file sizes from this camera are pretty huge. So the 4K 50 and 60p on this camera equals about 6 gig a minute. The 4K 24, 25 and 30 equals about 3.7 gig a minute. The 1080p 100 and 120p equals about 2.7 gig a minute. The 1080, 24, 25 and 30 equals about 660 MB a minute. And the 1080p 50 and 60p equals about 1.3 gig a minute. You also have standard and for editing IPB and OR-I codecs with the 1080p resolutions. Still frame rates. Obviously the 1DX being a sports camera has a crazy fast frame rate. It can do 14 frames a second and 16 frames a second in live view. I don't tend to use this feature that often, but for a sports shooter, I'm sure it's a must-have. You also have the option to set custom high and low frame rates, depending on what you think you might need. It does have a silent, not so silent feature, but you can take virtually silent images when in live view. It's rated for 400,000 exposures, so you'll probably never have to worry about replacing the shutter. Dual card slots. I've never truly used the dual card slot feature in any of my cameras, but it's nice to know it's there for added security on an important job. Cards do fail, and we only have so much control over that, so being able to write 2 cards at once is a nice touch. It would be nice if we could write proxy footage to one card and the main footage to the other, or if I could write stills to one card and video to the other. But sadly, this is not possible. You either write to one card or both cards. Cfast and CF. Speaking of the cards in this camera takes one CF card and one Cfast card, not to be confused with each other. They look identical and they have almost identical names, yet they are different cards with different readers. CF and Cfast cards are both faster and more reliable than SD cards, but they do come at a price. Saying that, I have had 2 Cfast cards die on me in the past. You can write every photo and video file to the CF card, as long as it's fast enough, all except the 4K 50 and 60p. Some people moan about the price of CF and Cfast cards, but they're not actually that bad. I own 3 Cfast cards and a CF card, all reputable brands and affordable enough for me. Canon EF Lenses. The Canon EF lens lineup is probably another reason why you're considering this camera. You either already own Canon glass, or you know how many options you have for the price. Even when you look at the used market, you can see how much more Canon EF glass is out there. Price. It's fair to say that this is an expensive camera, at least compared to its competition. Around £3,000 used, £3,400 grey market, and £5,000 new. It's still an expensive camera. This is at least £1,000 more than its closest competitors. No CLOG. Unlike the 1DC, upgraded versions of the 5D4 and the EOS R, the 1DX Mark II does not have CLOG. It makes no sense that the top of the line Canon DSLR doesn't have CLOG, but the other inferior models do. Touching on this, there are a few custom CLOG picture profiles floating around the internet that give the appearance of log. They don't actually give you any more dynamic range, but instead emulate a flat picture profile. This can help with grading and matching shots to other footage. This is nothing you can't do in post, but I found that it speeds up my grades and is good enough for me. Lack of sharpness and dynamic range. The 1DX Mark II doesn't have a huge amount of dynamic range when it comes to video. I often find that my shadows are either too crushed or my skies are too blown. Part of this reason is because of my previous point, the fact there is no CLOG in this camera. I think if there was more dynamic range in the video of this camera, it would give a much better image. Whilst I do quite like the look of Canon video, I wish the video image could be sharper. When compared to other camera systems, the Canon video footage can look quite soft. Part of the reason for this is because I take all the sharpening out through the picture profile. I wish the in-camera sharpening in Canon cameras looked better. The 4K video in this camera can look quite sharp, but in some other codecs like the 100 frames and 120 frames, you definitely start to notice the image starting to soften. Megapixel count. Whilst the 1DX does take some great high resolution stills, 20.2 megapixels is enough, but I wish it just had a little bit more to work with. The 1DX being full frame handles most low light scenarios pretty well, but it's no A7S. The video image starts to become unusable about 6400 ISO. When I'm filming indoors, I start to notice the camera producing noise in places I wouldn't expect it to. This is especially present in slow motion. I've also noticed that the higher ISO I shoot at, the more colour distortion I seem to see. Outdated codecs. For starters, all the video codecs in this camera are all 8-bit codecs. The 4K motion JPEG codec is one of the worst features in this camera. While all that information might be useful for grading, I found that even the most powerful computers will struggle to edit it. It being such a difficult but not impossible codec to work with, I find myself using it as little as possible as a result. The 1080p, for example, takes up almost 3 times the storage of what other similar cameras offer. 4K crop factor. So one of the cons on the 4K for this video is that you're actually going to get an APS-H size sensor over the full frame sensor. That means it's going to crop in about 1.3, 1.4. While this crop factor is probably not a deal breaker, it would be nice to have full frame 4K video. Another one of the cons of the 4K in this camera is that you're limited to 12,800 ISO. Again, probably not a deal breaker, but it would be nice if we could go past this. DCI Cinema 4K. The 4K being a 17:9 aspect ratio means if I want to use my 16:9 video, I have to crop the image, which results in a further crop, probably something closer to a 1.5 crop. I've also noticed that when filming 4K in this camera, the rolling shutter seems to get worse. I'm guessing this is something to do with the crop factor causing the rolling shutter, as I've not noticed it across the other resolutions and codecs. Battery charger size. When compared to any other camera system, the 1DX battery charger size is ridiculous. Yes, it will charge 2 batteries at once, and I get it, the 1DX batteries are pretty big, but the size of the battery charger is bigger than most cameras. It would be nice if we could have a smaller battery charger. No audio in 120p. The slow motion 100 and 120 frames in this camera has no audio. This is due to the camera recording the video in off speed. Some people see this as a pro, some people see this as a con, but if you need audio when recording slow motion, you're going to have to use an external recorder. HDMI out. Unlike most mirrorless cameras and video cameras, the 1DX can't output 4K over HDMI. This means you can't utilize the best features of using an external recorder. So therefore, the HDMI out is only really good for viewing and monitoring the camera's image. No flip out screen. Unlike the Sony A7 series and the EOS R, the 1DX has no flip out screen. This would be useful in scenarios like when filming yourself or filming on a gimbal. The reason for it not having this is probably something to do with the weather sealing and durability of the camera. So I can understand why they decided not to include it with this camera, although it would be a nice feature if they did. No internal Wi-Fi. Unlike most DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, the 1DX does not have a built-in wireless feature. The ability to preview live view, control your camera, and transfer files to your smartphone or computer is a great feature to have. Currently, the only solid option for this is the Canon WFT E8B adapter. By attaching this £400 adapter to your camera, you essentially have Wi-Fi. And it really sucks. The price is outrageous, and it introduces even more problems to this camera. The adapter has an overly complicated connection process, which results in you having to re-enter a different password every time you turn off or disconnect from the camera. You can only transfer JPEG stills and MP4 video, which you'll never use. And the video live view through the Canon Connect app is so delayed that it can't be used as a real-time monitor. Oh yeah, and it's £400. There's also very little information about this online, so if you wanted to know if it did anything, it probably doesn't. Timelapse features. Unlike most modern cameras, the 1DX has no time-lapse or intervalometer. For example, cameras like the 5D4 and 80D have built-in time-lapse features that take a 4K image from the sensor and stitch it into a video for you. Zebras and focus peaking. Unlike most professional video cameras, the 1DX has neither focus peaking or zebras. These are features I don't tend to use in a video camera all that often, but for some, this is a must-have. In conclusion, should you buy a 1DX Mark II in 2019? The short answer, yes. But it depends who you are and what you need, and what you're willing to put up with. The 1DX Mark II is definitely starting to show its age, and I believe we're probably looking at a replacement in about a year's time. I would suggest, if you thought this camera was right for you, I would suggest buying it second-hand or grey market, as I don't believe as a photo-video hybrid it's worth £5,000. If you're a sports photographer, or plan to use the 120 frames or 4K slow motion, then it might be the right camera for you. If not, I think there are better alternatives out there for the price.